This is our second WildFly community call. So let's get starting with the announcement. I think the big announcement is that today we have released WildFly 38 beta. We'll talk about that later in the agenda. So we have a 2-week period before we release the final version. So it's planned for October 16th.
Just quickly, and that means that the freeze for PRs, those of you who are planning to write a PR and do something, the deadline for that is next Wednesday, so not far. So
yeah, and as usual, the dates are available in our calendar on wildfly.org. Okay, moving on to the agenda. Brian, do you want to give an update on the WildFly governance? We have a deadline coming.
Yes. So a couple weeks ago, I wrote 2 draft governance documents. One for the WildFly application server project, which I think is what most people think of when they think of WildFly. And then also for something called the WildFly Common House organization, which incorporates a lot of other projects that are related to WildFly, used by WildFly, like Narayana, Undertow, RestEasy, etc., that are all organized within Common House in alignment with WildFly. So I proposed those a few weeks ago, sent them and socialized them. I think on this last call, I'm sure I talked about them. And we've gotten some feedback, some comments. I've addressed those. I certainly would love to hear more comments. If anybody has any other inputs, please go ahead. And my intention is then on Monday to start kind of an approval process where people can give a thumbs up to it, or they can request changes. I'm looking at following something that Common House does, is where they actually use responses on reactions, GitHub reactions to the actual pull request description, and then using, if you want to suggest a change, please use a GitHub request change thing. That seems to work okay for Common House, so I'm going to give that a try, unless I discover something between now and Monday that says, oh, that's a bad idea, but I think it's fine. The only other thing that's kind of related topic is I'm also working to come up with an initial list of maintainers. A maintainer is a role within our governance structure of somebody who is eligible for commit rights. So I'm working to come up with that list for the WildFly AS project, which is basically by researching everybody who has commit rights, who can, merge rights, right to permission to write to repositories is what it means formally. So I'm gathering that all together. So I think that's the main news.
Okay, thanks. Then Ranabir is not available today, but he asked me to talk about Hacktoberfest. So we are the 2nd of October, so it has already started. And we have an article on wildfly.org that explains all the projects that are participating in Hacktoberfest, with links to their code repositories, GitHub issues, and things like that. I have an ask for project developers. Please make sure that the projects that are participating have good first issues to help newcomers bring their initial contributions. And Rolabir will tell me that he will have an update at the end of October to see what we have been able to do during that Hacktoberfest. Then, as I mentioned in the community announcement, the big thing is that we have released WildFly 38 beta. So I've linked to the announcement by Darren that did the release. I think the most important item that we did for that release is WildFly 19554. Do you want to talk about that, Brian or James?
Sure. So what this is it's a change that's in Jakarta EE11. It's part of the actual EE platform specification. And what it does is it basically specifies that JPA implementers who run in a full EE platform are meant to expose various JPA objects, particularly Entity Manager and Entity Manager Factory, via CDI. So you can use simple @inject to inject those things into your application, as opposed to the legacy way of using persistence context and things like that. So it's just it's a more CDI friendly way of doing things. So we, Scott Marlowe and James, with a lot of discussion with James in particular, implemented that in WildFly Preview for WildFly Preview 38. So there's some interesting edge cases around that. There was a lot of discussion about how to handle certain things. So this is definitely one I encourage people to give this a try with their applications, and then let us know if you encounter anything, because it's a classic thing where, like, hearing from users about any experiences they had would be very helpful.
And it's available in WildFly Preview, not
Yes.
WildFly. Okay.
Yes, it's related to Cardi E11, and so currently our Cardi E11 support is all via WildFly Preview.
Okay, yeah, that's important to keep in mind. The second big item is that we have support for microprofile 7.1. So it's a minor release. There's only 2 updates to the specifications about telemetry and OpenAPI. But we have passed their TCK test. Then in addition to, I suggest to look at Darren's mentions and the reason notes, because there was a lot also done around component upgrades. We have some major upgrades of Hibernate, ActiveMQ, and I forget a lot about them. Plus bug fixes in general to WildFly code base to have a more stable experience. And as we mentioned, the final release will be available in 2 weeks. Anything else that people want to mention about WildFly 38? Okay. That was all we had on the agenda, but this time we have more things in the parking lot, so I think we can switch to that. Brian, you added a sections to highlight some of the discussions we have in our developer channels on Zulip. Maybe Emmanuel, you want to talk about JSpecify? You have been starting the conversation.
Yeah, just a quick introduction. So JSpecify is 3 annotations to try to specify the mutable property of a parameter or original value, to have some kind of, I would say, neural behavior contract, a bit like in what we have in Kotlin. So the idea is to be able to check if not mutable value wouldn't get a null value from some execution path, and to fail on CI or during build, so that we make sure that this case is properly handled at the root of the execution path. That's basically the idea, and the goal is to avoid those threaded null pointer exceptions that can occur and often occurs in production.
Okay.
That's all.
Thanks. Then, James, you have started the huge task to upgrade our test suite with Junit 5 or 6.
Yes. Yeah, it's something that I've been talking about for a while. I've converted most of the projects that I work on over to use JUnit 5. I would suggest anybody that doing this to go ahead, if you're already on Java 17, switch to JUnit 6. There's I haven't seen any issues with it at all. I ran the Rest Easy. I upgraded it in Rest Easy and some various other projects already. But it does require Java 17, so any project that hasn't moved, that would be a requirement there. This is something I would love to do in WildFly. I've done one, I think it was the smoke tests have been migrated to JUnit 5. We can migrate to JUnit 6 at some point, but I don't think that's like super critical at this point. I would be, if others are interested, I'd be happy to coordinate this kind of move, because it's a really big undertaking, and WildFly itself has a very large pull request queue that it would likely affect probably, I would say, over half of the pull requests, if not more like 90%. So it's something that we really need to coordinate if it's something that we're interested in, and do it in small chunks. Yeah, and any questions anybody has?
And if we do that, we have to do that, I think, in the early stages of a new release.
I completely agree. Yeah, it has to be done very early, not towards the end of a release by any means, because it's asking for too many problems with like just coordinating pull requests getting merged.
Okay. The good news is that we will have a lot of new maintainers, so we'll have more people available to look at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Then I wrote an update on the Java.like documentation that we are doing for feature packs. Basically, what was available only for WildFly, having a reference on the management API, the error codes, log messages, the layers provided by feature pack is now available to any feature pack. So this will provide very Java.like documentation for our feature packs, and it's complementary to what Jean-François has presented 2 weeks ago about having a catalog that aggregates all this information in a single place, so you can see having a single place to see all the capabilities that you can have to add to your applications running on WildFly. And then James, you mentioned Java 17. We're also discussing as using that as the baseline for our provisioning tooling, including also our WildFly Maven plugin. This is something that we would like to target for Java 39. I think again this is something that should be better done early in the cycle, so that we can have a release of our tooling with Java 17 before we go into the final stage of releasing WildFly 39.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's something I've kind of started thinking about. I have some issues filed, at least for, I think, WildFly Archillion. I don't know that I filed any for the Maven plugin yet, but I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be able to upgrade as well to, or require Java 17. We just, it's basically just a chain of tooling that needs to happen to kind of make it all come together, and then, major version bumps and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think a change like that to the minimum LTS that we are supporting in our tooling would warrant a major release of all these tools.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, thanks.
So, do you think this is a good thing we should do every time? I stuck it in the parking lot because I added it to the agenda too late, but I think this is a good recurring theme that we should always have in these meetings, where we add just FYI, here's this conversation we're having.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. Especially now we have a lot of different JDKs that we want to talk about. We have 17 as the baseline, and then the next section is from you, Brian, about 25.
Yeah, no, what I was talking about is the interesting discussions in general, just this general.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, here's things, you might not be following all of our ways of communicating.
Yes, that's a very good idea, and feel free to add them to the agenda. Anybody want to get more eyeballs on this kind of discussions? Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mania Brain, you wanted to talk about Java SE 25?
Yeah. Were you going to show that slides or not?
Yes. Let me share it.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so basically, SE 25 went GA a couple weeks ago, and of course, obviously, that's really important to WildFly. WildFly has a long history of keeping up on the JDKs pretty well. So just quickly, just in terms of how we support JDK versions, there's kind of like 4 different categories of support that we declare for a JDK. There's non-LTS, where we always try to pass the basic test suite every release. For the current, we release non-LTS. And then for LTS releases, it takes more effort, which I'll get into what we do in a second. And while we're undergoing that, before we say that a particular JDK is like recommended or qualified, our current recommended is 21 and qualified is 21 and 17, right? So before we would say 25 is recommended, we go through a qualification process. So basically for WildFly 38, SE 25 is going to be in the qualifying category, okay? In terms of what that means, if you flip to the next slide, basically to get something to move to recommended. So this slide was about SE21, but we'll go through the same process for 25. One is we passed the WildFly and WildFly Core test suites using that SE. And my hope is that we'll accomplish that for we haven't accomplished it for 38 beta, but we're close, I think. I hope we can accomplish that for 38 final. We'll see, but that's my hope. Then the other parts are more complicated. We try to run the EE-TCK, and that we haven't started using on SE25. It's a task. We know parts of the EE-TCK won't pass because they require the security manager, and SE25 doesn't implement a security manager. But that's okay. We're not trying to certify on SE25. We're just trying to use the TCK as a very useful, enormous test suite. So that we'll kick that off. And then the final thing is basically I survey all the component leads related to all of our major components to see what the status of their project is with how they're testing SE25. Because of course we don't want to just say it works fine, but it turns out that all of our components, it doesn't work. In all pass that we don't test ourselves. So I will be kicking off that initiative. I know various components have already started testing SE25, but I'll be kicking off that initiative, I think next week, to get that going. So I'm hoping that we can get to recommended in WildFly 39. Maybe not, because we got a lot to do in WildFly 39, but definitely by 40. Which that would be pretty equivalent to how we handled SE21, where like a couple of releases after when SE21 went GA, it became our recommended version in WildFly.
Yeah. I think it would be a good thing to get these 2 slides and put them in on wildfly.org with updated information, so we know what is the oldest LTS that we support and at which level we are for the different criteria.
Syncing back to Hacktoberfest, one of the good first issues, it's a non-trivial good first issue, but on the other hand, it's not deadline oriented and it's technically interesting, is one about technical mechanisms to provide that data, maintain that data so we can display that data. So I would love if somebody would volunteer to work on that. It would be awesome.
Do you have already an issue for that? Or?
Yes, it's one of the good first issues in the WFLY WildFly project. Yeah.
Okay, that one would be a really good candidate for Hacktoberfest.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anything else that people want to talk about Java SE25? It's not only something that concerns Wi-Fi directly, but also components that we are integrating.
Yeah, I could say that I've started running the REST Easy TCK, or the Jakarta REST 4.0 TCK, which is the EE11 variant, on Java 25, and we are definitely passing with WildFly preview.
Okay, yeah, very good news then. Okay, thanks. Then another question I had for you is that what do you think about using these community calls to do project spotlights? Because we often talk about WildFly, but a lot of functionalities from WildFly are coming from other components and projects that we are integrating. Most of the time, they don't have the same spotlight and views that WildFly can have. So I was wondering, for example, starting with the projects that are also coming to Common House, to give a short introductions and tell them what they are about, because I'm not sure that under REST Easy and Narayana are really names that spoke to people, while they provide core functionalities of WildFly and are very important for the application server. I was thinking, very short 10-15 minutes presentation about the project, where it is, what's its roadmap. What do you think about that? Okay, yeah, tell me speaking for Narayana.
Yeah, I think I could probably do something. And for those projects, when's our next call? Is it like 2 weeks or something? So we're still in Hacktoberfest. So yeah, I think it would be interesting for any project that's in WildFly that's contributing to Hacktoberfest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you gonna, if we decide here to do it, will it be something that you send on WildFly Dev, or would you like reach out to people individually, do you think?
No, I think I will send on WildFly Dev and maybe ping, the representatives for the different project on Common House to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I could definitely do something on Ariana.
Yeah. Because something I realized while doing this course is that we are using a lot of project names that may not be really identified, and even acronyms and abbreviations, but sometimes would need to be better specified. But I think Project Spotlight would be a great way to
Right.
bring contributions not only to WildFly but other satellites projects around it. Okay. That was all we had at the agenda today. Is there anything else that people want to discuss?
Well, I mean, we can dig into some of the other things. We have time, so
Okay.
So there was a discussion of the JUnit stuff, and I know James, you commented on there's the fact that we have subsystem tests, which that's a part of our key part of our test infrastructure. These are basically unit tests of the subsystems. For each subsystem module, it validates its basic management API functionality. I was looking at the framework behind that, and I don't think it would be that big of a deal to figure out how to support both or something.
Yeah. So one idea that I had and I have not tried would be, so JUnit has, I don't know, they have I think it's JUnit Vintage, which is basically allowing you to run JUnit 4 tests with JUnit 5. The one thing that I'm not certain of, because I haven't used it, is if you can use assertions of both, like if you can use, because the JUnit 5 Plus uses, I can't remember the name of the assertions that it uses, but it's like kind of like a more open source project of assertions or something like that, or test something. I can't remember what it is. But as long as I think the assertions would work, that seems to be the biggest thing. As long as you can like if we migrated the test projects themselves to use, or the test framework to use JUnit 5, as long as those assertions still work with that vintage runner, I think we're okay.
Yeah, and I looked, and there's like maybe a handful of assertions.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
And they could all be converted into just throwing Java lang assertion error. In other words, we don't need to use.
Oh, good point. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, and it's not the assertions I was thinking about. It's the assumptions. Yeah. Sorry.
I do think JUnit 5 understands assumption violated exception, though. I think I saw that.
Okay, cool.
So in other words, you can manually throw those two and now rely on a framework to construct an exception for us. We could just, because there's only a handful of those too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it seems reasonable to me. I mean, it's definitely worth a test, right? Like, I mean, with Open Rewrite, it's actually fairly easy to convert these things. And it does a pretty good job. There's definitely things like you get, like I did it to the basic test suite to try that. And there was definitely a lot of manual work to kind of get that, because there's just some edge cases that we use that it just doesn't understand Open Rewrite itself, which is understandable, right? Like, but also just as a FYI, if anybody is using Open Rewrite, they're always very open to contributions. I contributed something to convert Archelian tests from JUnit 5 to JUnit 6, and they really worked really well with me and quickly too. Like, I mean, I think within a week it was merged, and another week it was released. Like they moved pretty quick. So, and I know with the Jakarta EETCK refactoring, they used Open Rewrite, and they had a really good experience with them as well. So, it's a good community, and I think that Marco did something with LRA where he contributed something I have not followed with the Open Rewrite PR that he sent, but they seem to respond to him pretty quickly too. So
So we have different targets of test suite when we are talking about WildFly test suite. So we have the subsystem test that we are talking about. There's the smoke test that you did, James.
Correct.
And then we have a more complex integration test. We have also manual mode, mixed domain. Can we then do them one at a time, or is
Yeah,
it
exactly.
really...
That's the important stuff. Like we can like move these modules at any time, right? When people have time to do that, right? So the only problem is that that's subsystem framework, right? Which is lives in core, but then if we upgrade that, then everything needs to upgrade in WildFly. So I was thinking about, if this doesn't work, James, what you're suggesting, like to do this vintage mode, the worst case scenario is to, just add like JUnit, not even 5, but JUnit 6 at this point module. That would be a separate module, and people can just at the same, do the same thing when they have time to upgrade to JUnit 6. They can just do it as they please. We don't have to do this big bang. We would just deprecate that module.
No, I don't think we can do a big bang. I think it's way too complicated to do a big bang.
Yeah, I just think it's not efficient use of our time to sort of figure out this middle ground, right? Just move to create this module temporarily. I mean that one can stay, upgrade the test, and we can just remove the old testing framework.
Well, I think it's worth experimenting to see if we can migrate the test framework itself to use JUnit 5, because I don't think it would be that difficult, and then test and then see if it just works on the old stuff. Like, I mean, all you gotta do is convert one module, compile it, and then run a test. Like you could do it all in core, right? Like you could run the logging subsystem tests, or one of the subsystems in there. That would be pretty easy to run. Yeah, and just see if it works.
Yeah, we can do that with WildFly core. We have enough testing usage there to really smooth all the edges.
Yeah, but you would still ask people to like use the vintage module, right? So people would still need to make changes.
Well, you would have to use the vintage module until you migrate your tests, your subsystem tests.
The other, I haven't proven this, but we release that framework every WildFly core release, but I don't think there's any particular requirement that a subsystem use the current version of that module. They could just depend on an old version until they migrate if we wanted to.
I mean, that's true, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The only trick that I could see that where you could run into problems is if/when we add new like the known transformer versions.
Yeah,
that would be like the one thing, but I mean that's not a common occurrence. So I think it would be enough time. I don't think it would be that big of a deal.
So I mean that's hacky, but it's also possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Very hacky.
And I think the idea would also that we don't, lessen the time where we want to do that transitions to JUnit 5. If we can do that in WildFly release, we can try to do that in 2, but not. I think these all things that will stay. We still at some point want also to move all our code to JUnit 5, right?
Yeah,
6. I think we should target 6, right?
I think we should target 6 too. I know when I started the conversation, 6 wasn't out, and it was just released the Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuesday, maybe.
Yeah, just to make sure that people understand, like we've been actually working on this JUnit 5, which supports JUnit 6, as what seems like, in Arculin, right? Because Arculin is dependency for almost everything we do, right? So especially James has been, working a lot on this to like have this support in Arculin, and then we can actually start moving the things we use in WildFly. And also, as part of like verifying this works for bigger projects like WildFly, we have all the projects that we manage, we've already upgraded them to JUnit 5. Like WildFly clustering, REST-DZ, MoCluster, and all the other smaller projects. They're already on JUnit 5. Some are already on JUnit 6 as of yesterday.
Yeah.
With Arculin, and it seems to work just fine. They didn't change that much. So this has been like work in progress for quite a few months already.
Yeah, and I do think once we hit the integration test, we are going to potentially find some bugs in our Killian itself. I know that like when I had originally converted it, there was definitely some things like there's some things that just work differently because you have both Archillion and JUnit attempting to manage some kind of a state and context. So, and they don't play super great together, but we've done the best we can, type of thing.
Is it something that we can target for the start of WildFly 39, or is it more realistic to talk about 40?
I mean, we can definitely start. I think we can start at WildFly 39. Yes. The subsystem tests are, you know what I mean? Like, especially with integration tests, I think that we can start converting some of the smaller ones first. The big basic one is it's gonna take some time. Like, and we don't have to do we don't have to do all integration test modules in one go. You could do them one at a time.
Okay.
Which I think is the way to go. And we definitely need to coordinate it. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be me, but anybody that wants to coordinate it, it definitely needs to be coordinated with whoever's the release coordinator is and whoever the, like somebody helping monitor the pull request queue, just because it's going to be a pain for whoever has an open pull request. If they wrote a test, they have to rebase, and they potentially have to rewrite their test. There's some kind of strange things with JUnit 5 with assertions where it switched the position. So instead of the message going first, expected, and then what was found, it's expected, what was found, message.
Okay.
So the people then run open rewrite on their newly altered tests.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely an option.
IDs are pretty good at this already, right? So
yeah,
should be less of a problem.
And maybe also some AI tooling could help on that to automate that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some added benefits too, right? Like, I mean, one of the things for like you can pass a supplier for the message, which supplier with a string, so you can lazily, you don't have to like worry about, I'm creating this big long string from this HTTP response because I want to know what it was when the error hits, but you can lazily do that, and it'll only populate if the error occurs, right?
Yeah.
So there's some definite benefits to things like that.
Okay.
One of the things I'm looking for JUnit 5, especially if I don't know if people are up to date with that, but like there's a feature called categories, so you can just filter the tests you want to run using categories. So if you're working on a feature and it's targeting the special
they're called tags.
Yeah.
JUnit 5+.
Tags, yeah, okay. Yeah, but is it in I'm not sure, maybe from the Maven plugin it's categories. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? But
it was categories in JUnit 4.
Oh, okay, yeah. But you can like just run the test that you're interested in, and hopefully like speed up your local development a tiny bit.
Yeah, the TCK uses the tags quite a bit. Whether they use them well, in my opinion, or not is a different question, but they use them a lot. And it's definitely something we could really do, right? Like, it allows you to be able, like, to not necessarily always have to separate all tests into like specific Maven module categories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we also have,
exactly.
I know the way we test layers, we have all these crazy executions where we're listing which tests are applicable.
Yeah.
So
this is all going to go away.
Who's going to go update it upon when they add a new test?
Yeah, like, I mean, like layers and bootable jar are good, right? Like, you can tag every test that's okay to run a bootable jar with bootable jar, and then you don't have to have all these different executions. You can have an extra execution, but all you're doing is telling it to run the group bootable jar, okay, or whatever you decide to call that tag,
Yeah.
And the tags can actually be annotations themselves. Like, we could have a utility project that says, that's just says at bootable jar, means it runs a bootable jar, and then it has the list of tags in the annotation that it can run. And I mean, it's definitely very easy to make it very extendable, very readable.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of good reasons to upgrade.
Well, and especially Junit 4 is going to, will stop being supported at some point, and then we'll be just rushing to upgrade to something recent, and
Well, there's
maybe
there was
conflict with our schedule. So that's why we do. The sooner we do it, the better. And there's also
Somewhere
actually
in-
like one of the reasons, for instance, in like WildFly clustering. So what we're doing is in like WildFly clustering projects, there are some testing harness in place to verify certain conditions, which we then sort of have to sort of duplicate in WildFly. So what we're doing is like just sharing those test conditions from the WildFly clustering project, and I want to use that from WildFly, right? And that thing is already on JUnit 6. So that's also a reason why we need to upgrade so that we can actually leverage some of the shared test code from upstream and maintain it in one place. So there's also efficiency thing.
Just kind of on that note, if any of that stuff makes sense to have in WildFly Archillion, let me know too, because I have a project with a bunch of stuff like that, or a module within WildFly Archillion that has some of that kind of stuff, like where you could check to see if a module exists, and if it does, then run this test. If not, then skip the test.
It seems like the clustering test would be. I mean, there is a very important problem that we have way too many open PRs, and therefore we don't want to break a lot of people's PRs by upgrading. But I suspect the number of open PRs that we can't clear that relate to the clustering test, we should be relatively under control. So that seems like one potential candidate that we can migrate.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
That one too. There's not very much activity in the web test suite. That seems like
Yeah, I think that was one that I had done locally, and it just required some changes, and I got lost in something else, probably.
you got a lot going on, dude.
Okay. Well, thanks for the information. Is there anything else that people want to discuss or mention? Okay. Well, in that case, we can stop the meeting now. Thanks everybody for joining, and talk to you later. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.